So today I want to talk to you a little bit about market incentives and kind of like how that works from my perspective, and then a lot about data. And so, first of all, starting off with market perceptions and perceived value versus actual value. The best place to start with this is you have two people. One makes $10 per hour, one makes $100 per hour. What's the difference between the two people? The difference isn't that one works harder than the other, that one knows more than the other, that one is more experienced than the other, etc. There's generally speaking, those aren't the differences that separate these two imaginary people. There's only one difference that separates these two imaginary people, which is the perceived value of the one that makes $100, or the perceived rarity of how hard it is to find a person to replace that person. That's if we condense that equation, we squeeze everything out of it. That's what we get out of it. So person A makes $10 per hour because I could find person B, C, D, or E to also do that same function for $10 per hour, and it would be easy for me to do that. Person B makes $100 per hour because it would be almost impossible to find someone to replace that knowledge. What they know for that specific function is worth $100 per hour because in my perception, it would take forever to find a person to replace that, right? And then, I mean, that's how all pure economics works. And let me give you a very simple and straightforward example of this, right? So up until October of 2023, if you wanted to talk LLM models, it was $50,000 to talk to me, like flat out. Like if you were thinking of installing like a LLaMa model, $50,000. Like, could I do it? Sure. Yeah, there was very few people in the world that could, right? And then so I'll do it for you, 50K. And people lined up, there was people that were just falling over themselves for contracts at that point, right? And it was, to me, it was an interesting period to be in because so you're negotiating these contracts for like $50,000, and then all of a sudden, just the value of it just starts to plummet, like poof. And today, I mean, like I'd install a LLaMa model for you for $100. like and so that's how fast it cratered, right? But it's all perceived value, and it all comes down to perception of value. The perception of the value shifted extremely fast in this scenario, right? And then with AI, you see that happening I mean, that's the entirety of AI. Why do I make these videos? Why am I so bullish on AI overall? Because I am aware of this collapse equation. I understand AI. I've reverse engineered every single aspect of AI that you want to profit from. And I can't find, as a person that is very interested in extracting profit, a way that you're going to cleanly extract profit from it. I mean, that's my flat out hypothesis why I'm not flat out in like the direct AI game, right? Like, why am I not building out products? Why am I not in here doing these things that other people are doing in that area? I did this equation 2 years ago. I saw that $50,000 bucket bottom out immediately, like the most craziest thing I've ever seen 2 years ago, right? So I understand that there's aspects of AI that you aren't going to figure out, and then those are the only profitable aspects that remain profitable. But it's just a matter of you figuring out how easy this is to actually do, and then that all craters out and it all falls apart. And then there's nothing stopping that knowledge dissemination. So, like me trying to block or hinder that in any way for personal gain, like it seems to me the opposite approach that I should be taking in this grander scheme of things. So here we are with this video. And then, so here, that's a good segue and a good introduction for this video to bring us into the actual topic that I want to talk about today, which is this research paper, Simple Test Time Scaling, which was put out on February 3rd, 2025. And this paper talks and dives very specifically into a very, they take $30 essentially, and they fine tune a 32 billion parameter model to outperform every other model on the market, very specifically within mathematical problem solving, math, and PhD. It gets PhD level on science questions. And so $30. And what they do, flat out, right? I can go through this research paper. They go through and they talk about like a lot of the math and what's all involved in their data set. The very bottom line is that the entirety of this research paper boils down to this, which is their data set, right? And then they link it here to the data set, which we'll go to here, and it's 1,000 rows of data. And then so it's 1,000 rows of very carefully curated data, and this 1,000 rows is very this is structured very well, and this is what I want to spend a lot of time talking about within this video here, right? Let me do something up front here. I'm gonna go to Hugging Face. I'll show you a upfront example. I'm going to show you like one of my older data sets, right? And then so during this period when I was charging $50,000 to install a LLaMa model, here's a data set that I would install on that system, right? And it would be prompt and response. And then so this is PFAF data, and so this is something that I invented at the time that no one else had. This is big now, right? Like this is what you're getting for your $50,000 then, is the understanding that probabilistic math is like the way that I can move these models forward and move the needle here. So perhaps you're getting some value if you're paying me $50K for this at that time, right? And then so, but it's just prompt response. And that's literally all you're getting out of this. It's just literally that's the structure of the data set, but it's very curated. I understand at this point, further than other people, that you don't just give it garbage data, right? That you want to curate the data. So I make sure I do that, but it's just prompt response. So let's look at here. So this data set is doing a very similar thing, right? They're just giving the model math, and they're giving it very curated mathematical functions, just like what we're looking at with PFAF. It'd be very similar. But the structure of this is solution, question, chain of thought type, source type, metadata, chain of thought, thinking trajectories, attempt, and then that's it. And so all of these columns, but so the data, the model is getting all of these labeled columns of data, and then it's getting multiple labels for the same data. It's getting, so if we break this down into dimensions, in actuality, I'm giving my model one dimension of data with that PFAP data. I'm giving it the response data. The prompts are I mean, you can throw out the prompts in that data. The prompts are like, what is the PFAP function? How does the PFAP function work? Like, they're there as prompts, right? You can, and in a lot of instances, in a lot of training instances, I literally just cut out the prompt section and just train them on the responses. Whereas this, you can't cut out one of these columns, right? Every single one of these columns is very important to the structure overall of this data set. Solution, question, chain of thought type. And then this is, so you see math, science, etc. So it's categorizing, source type, metadata. So metadata is like information that is relevant and useful to it around the problem. Thinking trajectories, which is like, so like I'm thinking, like the user has asked me about a problem involving the 42. Like, what do I answer? Like, what's my response? And then attempt is very interesting, right? Because this is related to the trajectories. And then so if you notice, like one of the problems with Deepseek, I would say, as opposed to the O1 model, is that it goes off the rails a little bit with its thinking, right? Like, and you'll notice that as a user. How do you fix that? You fix that with this thinking trajectories and attempts, right? So like, here's your trajectory. Stay on thought. If you're thinking too much, we're gonna cut off your think time, and then we're gonna put a wait token if you're not thinking enough. Very straightforward, and then it's all just in the curation of the data set, and you're training the model on this via the data set. Like, there's nothing spectacular that you're putting into your training method overall. It all boils down to this, right? And then so as a consultant, like I can imagine, right? Like I go into a company, and then it's the distilled result is 1,000 rows of data that's super hyper clean and hyper formatted. Some companies are going to be ticked off about that, right? I mean, man, I wasted my money. The end result of getting from whatever mess this came from to this is the part of this that a majority of people aren't going to understand, right? And that's the meat in the equation on the bones that still exists within AI. So up front, I kind of dogged the economics of AI overall. Where would I still get into AI? Right here. Like, this is the part that isn't going to go away for a long time, right? Which is that people, even if you understand this equation, and I hopefully at this point you do understand at this point how relevant the data is to this. Essentially, they take 1,000 rows of training data and $30 worth of GPU, and they make this model clock GPT-4 and Deepseek, right? It just uppercuts them based off of this right here. But this is a lot on the back end if your data warehouse is a pile of garbage. If you don't have the data warehouse, like, you have to know the mathematical equations to give the model, right? That's step one, and you have to have access to them. Step two. Step three, you have to decipher them, clean your data, filter them. They started off with 10,000 examples. So they first filtered all of their data down to 10,000 examples, and then filtered that 10,000 examples down to 1,000. The best possible examples that they could possibly have, and included in the data set. Then they went through and they made sure that this structure, and they went through and built this framework out mathematically, and literally built a research paper on the structure that they were going to use for the data set. And then they built the data set, right? So end result is, oh man, it's just 1,000 rows of data. It's like, a research paper, a data warehouse, everything else went into it, right? And then so that's the part that you don't see, like that iceberg. And then that's the big part here with data. So if you want to if you want to work towards AGI, if you want your model to improve, what's the best thing that you can possibly do? It's not algorithm based, it's data. The most enhancements and the best advancements that people are making with these things, and like all of these things that are wowing your socks, they're not algorithmic enhancements at this point. They're not extreme modifications to the transformers. They're extreme modifications to the training process itself, either via reinforcement learning and that introduction of reinforcement learning to LLM models, or literally and flat out re-engineering and restructuring the way that we do supervised fine-tuning, which is what you're looking at here. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.